Welcome to the Mid-Life Reimagined Life Beyond Menopause podcast. I'm your host, Sally Thibault. You know, the thing that I love most about doing these podcasts is that I get to chat with extraordinary women doing amazing things in life beyond their own menopause transition. And today, interviewing the wonderful Frederique Neil, who likes to be called Fred, who is a business coach here in Vancouver and has created a new way to engage people in training and networking, all by using the concept of gamification. If you don't know what gamification is, I invite you to listen to this wonderful podcast. I have a fascinating guest this week, Frederique Neil. I'm going to read a little bit about her bio for you. She was born in France, based in Vancouver since 1993. Fred Neil is a certified ICF coach working fluently in both French and English. After running a successful web design business for 17 years, she transitioned into business coaching in 2016. Since then, she's coached more than 650 entrepreneurs through private coaching and workshops, helping them to move from overthinking to execution, big issue many of us have. She's also the creator of the Business Power Breakfast, leads an entrepreneur accountability group in Vancouver, and founded Desity, a platform designed for coaches, trainers, and facilitators. Her approach combines strategy, curiosity, integrity, and practical action tailored to each client's reality. Fred Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. Fred and I caught up last week, and listening to her story, I thought, I got to get you on my podcast because your story is fascinating. I just love how you're innovating something that is an issue. But before we talk about that, and we're going to talk about gamification. I know for many people, they have absolutely no idea what that means, but we will talk about that in a minute. Tell me a little bit about you. And so you were born in France. How did you end up in Canada?
Okay, it's a sort of a funny story because for most people that I'm talking to, they always had a dream of moving to Canada. Well, I never had that dream actually. It started from an ad in a newspaper, if you can believe that. Yes, so I was working on the French Riviera with my now ex-husband. And my mom was in Brittany, so, like northwest of France. She did something that she never did before and never did after because she regretted it, or she's regretting doing that. So she saw that ad in the newspaper, or that actually interview in the newspaper. It was some official representative from Quebec saying how they would value or they would help people, French-speaking people, to move to Quebec. And she sent us that article, and we looked at it and we said, oh yeah, why not? Let's do this. So, and that's how we arrived in Montreal first in November. I don't remember which year because I'm very bad with years, but yes. And I've been living in Canada for 32 years now. So.
And I bet your mother just wished she'd never sent you that.
Oh, but she's been regretting. Now she doesn't say anything anymore, but for so many years, she's like, why did I do that?
I can imagine. The French Riviera to us sounds so exotic and extraordinary.
Well, I have to say that when I moved to Montreal, so it was in October, November, and I had my first snowstorm. I'm like, what am I doing here? And it's snow like, up to mid-legs, and I'm like, oh my God.
I can relate. When I first moved to Edmonton in 1979, 1980, I was thinking the same thing, going from the warm Australian sun to Edmonton, Alberta. First time it hit minus 35, I thought, the hell?
And it's funny because when you hear stories like that of minus 30, 40, you're like, nobody can survive that.
Yeah.
And they actually do because you and I, we survived it. Good.
We're still alive to tell the story.
Exactly.
So how long were you in Montreal?
Only 2.5 years. And I would say including 3 winters. Yeah, we were there until 1995. And in 1995, there was the last referendum in Quebec.
Yes.
And that was very weird because that was not our war. It was not our battle, being from France. And at the time, I had a job, but I was bored in my job. I actually had a better job in France and I was making so much more money. And my ex-husband was a chef and he was working a lot during summer, but during winter, he didn't do as many hours. Plus, he was a head chef in France. He was not that in Quebec. So, after 2.5 years, we're like, what do we do? Are we going back to France or are we moving forward like somewhere else? And at the time, they were talking about Vancouver as being very booming, like economically. So we took our car, and we drove across Canada, 9 days from Montreal to Vancouver. It's a big country.
That's a big country. For those who are listening, not from Canada, it's enormous. And you cross so many different provinces that are also different.
And the Great Lakes, it's crazy because, like for 3, 4 days, we still had the Great Lakes on the left-hand side. Still water, water, water. Can you imagine that? Like 4 days with water and it's not the ocean. It's
No.
it's lakes, so that was amazing. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
I would love doing that again, but going from Vancouver to Montreal,
Yeah.
but this time more like for vacation, because that first time around we were moving, we were changing our lives, and we didn't know anybody coming to Vancouver. We didn't have a job. We had to build everything from scratch again because we did that in Montreal.
I know how that feels, but at least we had family to come to. So you came here, you and your ex-husband, literally on your own. How did you figure out where to live? Did you kind of drive around? Did you get a sublet apartment or something? How did you figure out, okay, this is where we want to be?
Well, when you are in a situation like that, you have some priorities. So it's the first one is to put a roof over your head.
Yes.
So we ended up in Burnaby. So the problem that we had first, our English was not great. We didn't have any references. So we had to knock at a lot of doors before one person actually said yes. And I'm very grateful to that person. See, there's always somebody somewhere who's going to help you.
Yes.
And because we didn't know anyone, we didn't have any reference. Again, we hardly spoke any English, and we didn't have a job. We had nothing. And some people, on your path, they're there to help. And I think it's something to remember, and that's something that we should all do if somebody asks for help. Not expecting a return. It might come back through somebody else.
Yes. Yes.
But I think it's important.
And especially when it's not your first language.
Yeah.
I often think that for people who move anywhere to a new country, and we can judge people, but it's incredibly difficult to do, especially when you don't have the language of the country or the place you're moving to. I mean, it must have been times when you were really questioning even that decision, or you were just decided this is what it was going to be.
Well, it was an adventure. Plus, coming from France, we were not coming from a bad country per se. So it was more like, okay, a little bit like what we did when we moved to Montreal. It's like, okay, let's try it.
Yes. Yes.
So that was the same idea, I think, of moving to Vancouver. Let's try. And if it doesn't work, well, again, France is not a bad country.
You can always go home.
It's a different situation where you're immigrating by choice versus, immigrating because of a war in your country, and you're a refugee. So where you don't have a choice, or you want to give a better life to your kids. So yeah, it is an experience for sure, an adventure for sure. And yes, there are some ups and downs, but it makes life exciting too, no?
And that's right. Now, were you web designing at that point?
Well, at that time, the web didn't exist.
I was just going to say, I think that would have been early 90s, no, late 80s, right? Would have been
maybe 1995 to Vancouver. So no, there was no internet at the time.
That's because 1996 was when the internet came to Australia, I know. And the only way you could access it in those days was you had to have somebody who was at a university.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it took a few years after to get internet. And it's interesting because we had internet, and then we were speaking to my family in France, and they had no idea what we were talking about. They were behind. They were probably like 3-4 years behind.
Yes. I mean, when we think about now how connected we are, you realize that we kind of went through, somehow we all survived the 80s and the early 90s without being connected, knowing everything. It was just.
And that was good too. We were on time for our appointments.
Yeah.
We were, I don't know how we did.
I know, right?
But it worked.
My husband first got a phone in his car in 1980. Must have been 1987, I think. We just bought a house, and he got a car phone, that was fascinating. I remember the first phone bill we got from his car was like $275 or something ridiculous, because he used to phone me on the way home to say, I'm on the way home. $275. That was the first and last big bill. So how did you transition into web design then? I mean, when did that all happen?
That's another funny story. I tend to listen to, I don't know, messages. I don't know, things that are happening to me. And I'm like, it's like as if I have messages and I need to pay attention. I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, but no. And I was working in a call center, which was the worst job of my life ever.
I've done that. Horrible.
To me, that's the equivalent of working in a factory.
Yes.
That's really what it was. And at one point, I had two different people, like completely different people. I remember one because she's still a friend, and the other person, I think I met that person randomly. And both of them told me about a program at UBC, a web design program at UBC. And because those two people we had no connection at all, one is a very good friend, the other one, I don't know, somebody I just met like that, told me about that program. I'm like, that's weird. That's strange. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so it started like that. So I guess we're talking about it. It sounds like I'm a lot of, my life is a lot of opportunities that just showed up or paying attention to what was going on because that's how I became a web designer.
It's so true, though. I mean, that's the key, isn't it? When you're willing and open to listen to the messages. And when something like that happens, I don't believe in coincidences.
Yes.
I believe in messages. So when you have two people saying, you're like, hey, I better look at this. That's cool.
Because it was so weird.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So did you have a technology background or anything like that?
No. My background is I was a degree in hotel management.
Okay.
So there was no reason for me to go there. But we had a computer at one point, obviously, because then we had the internet.
Yes.
And I was always fascinated by the internet, by computers, by technology. So even though I didn't have a technical background per se, I was the troubleshooter in my place, in my home, So I'm very curious by nature. I want to understand. I want to know things. So that was another challenge. Okay, let's do this.
So that you did web design for 17 years.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
All right. So what happened is after that many years, so I was very successful, because 17 years for a business is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I found my niche as well. For the longest time, I was like the only French-speaking web designer in Vancouver. So I created websites for a lot of French-speaking organizations and companies. Not just that, because I had some English-speaking ones as well. But that was my niche, really. But then what happened is, so first I started to be tired of it. As much as I really loved it for so many years, because every time I was pushing myself into something new, I would see something on a website that I want to do that. Yeah. So the next project, I would do my best to include that new things I wanted to do to discover in that new project. The clients didn't know, it's me. It was my choice. I'm going to put that. So, but then the second thing is I watched a program on French television from France, I'm talking about. And they were like kids, like 7 years old, and they were learning how to create websites. And I'm like, whoa, okay, they're just behind you. They're not that far away, from being adults. And I think that was smart because now everyone can create websites, even more so now with AI. It's so easy now. So I'm always studying something. I'm very curious. I'm always learning new things. It's a joke in my family. It's like, well, what is she learning now? And so I don't mind going back to school or learning things, but I didn't want a long program. Plus, I realized that a lot of people would come to me, like even my friends would come to me to find clarity in their choices because I tend to be non-judgmental naturally. And I'm very analytic, so I would look at all the different options and say, well, there's this option, this option, this option. But I'm not attached to anyone using my solutions. I'm just here to say, well, you could do this and that and that. But, how do I know if I'm right or if I'm wrong? I don't read the future. Yeah. So that plus loving being an entrepreneur, loving being surrounded by entrepreneurs. Plus, I started, even as a web designer, I started to give workshops about not the web design per se, but, thinking about your website, also about social media. So I really liked helping entrepreneurs. So all that combined together, I'm like, I want to be a business coach. And at the time, there wasn't like a program for becoming a business coach, but there was life coaching. So I'm a certified life coach, but I don't do life coaching. I use life coaching techniques to help my business clients because in the end, they're just human with their issues, their blockage, and using life coaching techniques help to hopefully help them move forward with their business.
So I believe that you spend a lot of time with French-speaking clients?
Mainly. That was my mistake because in Vancouver, the community is quite small.
Yes.
And so I was a business coach for 6.5 years, but for a French-speaking organization. So it was funded by the government. So people were coming to me. That was easy. They didn't pay for it. It was free.
Yeah.
But then when I decided to create my own business, then, there weren't that many clients ready to pay for my services. So then I'm now, and it's actually rather recent, I've been independent for the last 3 years. So, and I'm now trying to get to know more English speaking people, and the client base of people speaking English.
So you business coaching for a long time, still doing and
Yes.
moving more into broadening your scope. So what I want to talk about is this game you came up with, designed. Where did the idea come from to create this platform? Do you want to explain a little bit what it is first, and then we'll talk about how you came up with the idea?
So the platform is a tool for trainers, facilitators, coaches to create activities to keep their clients engaged. So it started with one activity, which you have experienced yourself, but the platform has four. And I'm using gamification. I don't want to call it games because it sounds that it's not serious. So I call them activities. But the gamification part is that I'm using dice to make it like a game. Because as soon as you see a dice, you think about game or casino, I guess. It depends who you are. And the fact that the activities are turned into games, people are more open into the answers that they give. And so again, it's 4 different activities, might be a bit long to explain, but maybe I can explain the first one that I created. So it could be used in different environments. The way I'm using it personally when I'm organizing my business power breakfast is I put the entrepreneurs, so it's for entrepreneurs. I put the entrepreneurs in group of 3, and there is one main speaker. The main speaker will have 2 minutes to answer a question, and then the others must be silent. So others would practice their active listening for once, because a lot of time people, when you talk to someone, all they want is answer back, talking about their life. So
Yes.
it's important to pay attention to people. So by being silent, it's really paying attention to what's being said. And then once the 2 minutes are up, then each other person has 1 minute to add on.
Yes.
Okay, to bonify what was said. So the gaming part of it is we don't know which question is going to be. So I have a general theme. So for example, entrepreneurship, and then I have topics. So our topics could be marketing, could be human resource, could be different topics. And each topic has 6 questions, which are 6 faces of the dice. And the type of questions are situational. For example, an entrepreneur realizes that his clients are not coming back. Okay, that's the situation. The question is, what should be his first step to fix that? And that makes it a very dynamic session because people are sharing their experience, they're sharing their opinion, and it's very quick. Obviously, in 2 minutes, you're not going to change the world. But the feedback that I get is that the other participants really enjoyed to see the one person, the way they think about the question, and the solutions that they come up with.
I played it. I went to one of Fred's events, and in our group were 4 very different people, very different, from different backgrounds and different businesses. And, it's often hard when you go to a networking event because it's, hi, how are you? And what do you do? Like, it's kind of superficial because, what do you do? And what do you do? And, whether I want to grab your business card or I don't. Whereas I really liked this game because it just gave everybody an opportunity to think. Granted, it was 7 o'clock in the morning. But what was really interesting is the guy that was sitting next to me was in the game. He's gone on to help support me in whenever I post something on LinkedIn, he's always sharing it out. He's been very, very generous. And I think, we only were together like half an hour, and I think that those quality of those questions almost gave him and me and the others in the group more of an opportunity to see the depth of who you were.
Exactly.
That's what I thought, and I'm I'm very outgoing, but it's just hard walking into a networking event where you don't know anybody.
Yes.
Like it really is difficult. So I really loved what you created there. But I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with the idea? Like, what was there a time when you went, oh, I think I should create a game out of this?
I was inspired by another game that was created by someone in the Netherlands. But it was like a board game, like a printed game.
Yeah.
And okay, it was a bit different, but it inspired me. But I got frustrated by that particular game because to me it was limited. Because once the questions are printed, then you're done. Because on my platform, I'm offering ready-made games or activities, but really once you get a subscription, you can create your own. Okay, so you can do whatever you want. But it started with that frustration, but I really like the idea of asking questions, which is the principle of coaching. But
Yes.
I liked it because rather than me asking questions, then it's people asking questions to each other and sharing experience.
Yes.
I truly believe in the value of experience.
Mm.
Personally, I value experience more than academic background.
Me too.
Because in a way, anything that is more academic, well, you take a book and you got that information. Experience, it's different, because I don't think all the experience in the world cannot be in books.
We know that Fred is post-menopausal woman, right? That's our knowledge and our experience that gets us where we are. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
And plus, I'm an introvert, so I really hate networking events.
Yeah.
And I know, but then when you're a business owner and when you're a business coach, well, you have to do it.
Right.
So initially I created the game for myself, but then people really enjoyed it and said, you should sell it. You should do something with it. So,
Yeah.
and that's how I created the first version using a gaming platform, but there were some limitations again. And recently I launched my latest version, which is that I created with AI. And that was a lot of work, trust me. So even if AI did the coding, you still need to have the brain to make it work. And I could see how my experience as a web designer and as a business coach really was so useful.
Yeah.
Creating the platform. And now, so it's I launched it like maybe a month ago now. So, and yeah, that's how the idea came up.
Congratulations. That's just wonderful. I mean, that it's just like when you see a need and you figure out a way to fix it, you solve the problem for so many other people. So it's not just for networking, as you mentioned. How else do you see this being used?
So it could be used as well for trainers because again, I have different activities. So for coaches as well, for example, one of the activities more based on an image. So I could see how at the beginning of a session, for example, the coach would show a random image. I could be, I don't know, a selling boat in a store and could ask the client, so what is your state of mind when you see this? So it could be, maybe I'm right in the storm or maybe I'm getting out of the storm, so that could, it's not replacing what they're doing. It's just an additional tool and something different as well.
Yeah.
And again, the gaming part is really not knowing what's going to show up. That's really what the part is, because it's not there are no winners or losers, everybody is a winner. But it's just like not the random pick of the image or the question makes it so that people are not ready and maybe they don't filter as much their answers. Maybe they're more real in their answers. Yeah, for coaches. I have another one. It's I call that the wheel of knowledge. So it's a bit like a Jeopardy, but I couldn't use their design because I would have trouble with them. So it's a wheel, and you have different subjects around the wheel, and the facilitator spin the wheel, and the participant would choose a number of points, and there's a question, and the higher the number of points, the more difficult the question. So this might be more for trainers or maybe business schools or places like that. I think that once you understand the functions of each activity, you can really use it the way you want. You can, and I created it so that it could be used in person and online, because I know, for example, because I've facilitated a lot of workshops and I'm using Zoom. And the problem that I found with Zoom, for example, is that when you send people in break rooms, then they don't see anymore what you shared with them.
Yes.
So to me, that was important. I really used my own experience to create this. So you can actually share a URL of the game and send people in break rooms, and they could work on the same question as a group. And then they come back, and there's a timer as well. You can broadcast a message to everyone at the same time as well, because those were all the limitations I could see with Zoom.
Yes.
So I created it in a way for myself.
Yeah, I mean, if you see problem and solve it. It just sounds fascinating. How long did it take you, say, from I might do this, an idea, to actually getting, like you said, you launched about a month ago? Because I know when I did it with you, it was about 5 months ago, and you were talking then about it kind of being in beta and you were just kind of testing it out. So how long do you think it would have taken you to get to this point?
There were different phases, really, because again, initially it started just for me. So, and then the evolution, really every time. See, as a real entrepreneur, every time somebody tells you something, you need to pay attention. Every time. Not if it's only one person, but when you have different people saying, that would be great if.
Yes.
Then when
Yeah.
you have different people, so, and every time I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do
Yes.
it. I was pushing my limits every time.
Yeah.
So from really the basic, the embryon of the idea, it probably, I would say 2 years. But again, because I needed to find the first tool and test them and then put everything together. And then I created a website and in the end, yeah. So, it's just coming back to the drawing board and
Continue to develop it.
yes.
Yeah, fascinating. Just fascinating. I'm actually going to put a link to your website below, and
Mhm.
so people can come and search you out. But also, if you're in Vancouver, June 10th, right, is your
Yes.
next.
Yes.
And it's again, a beautiful networking, but in a gorgeous environment if you're in Vancouver.
Yes. I'm lucky. The art gallery.
So I'll also put the link to that below. Before we wrap up, so just, I know you talked a little bit, because I always ask this question, what your menopause experience was like, and you mentioned brain fog.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Plus, I'm a thinker. So
Yeah.
imagine when I started to realize that I could not remember some things, that I could not function at all. I used to remember people's name and faces.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't happen anymore. And I was like, what's going on? What's
Yeah.
going on? I was joking with a friend of mine because she went through the same kind of episode. And I said, well, we need to stick together because half of your brain and half of mine, we can have a complete brain. But then that would mean like being together 24 hours, per day. So that would be a bit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went through that. Yes,
It's so frustrating, isn't it?
it is.
I,
It
I
is.
think I'm the same as you. I think, besides the weight gain and the night sweats, that was the thing that bothered me most of all, was the brain fog.
Because you realize you don't have control on your body,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when, you think that you do, but you don't. So, and to realize that, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
how do I manage that? What do I do now?
Yeah. It's so frustrating. And in my extended family, my mother's family, or 9 children, mum passed away early, but of the 8 left, five have passed from Alzheimer's or dementia. So when I went through it, was like, oh God, like, no, it was menopause. I actually remember my aunt saying to me, it will pass. This too shall pass. And it does.
Yeah, yeah. You think of that. You think, oh, do I have Alzheimer?
Yeah.
And I knew someone who had it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's the part that scared me the most, because at the same time, going through all that stuff, like I separated from my husband. So I'm like, okay, you're alone in Canada. If something happens to you, if you lose your mind, what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a bit of a
Absolutely.
scary part, because I don't have kids. I don't have anyone here.
Yeah.
I have friends. I have very good friends, luckily.
Yeah.
But still, so that's the kind of thing that is pretty scary. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. I always end, Frederique, by asking you, if you could sit down and talk with your 30-year-old self, what would you say to her? What's some wisdom that you would impart on your 30-year-old self?
I think I would. We don't realize that we're aging, and we shouldn't be scared of it, though.
Mm.
But then is to get all the information you can beforehand, and to realize that whatever you're doing at 30 is going to have an impact on when you're going to get older. Luckily, I have a culture of good food. Maybe there was a bit of wine and cheese, but cheese is good.
Yes. Especially with wine.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm thinking. I think that I, I I'm going to say I think I'm aging gracefully, and I think it's to do with all the good stuff that I did before. So, but maybe getting more information so that when you have the brain fog, you don't get scared and afraid.
I agree.
No,
And I think that's what I really like about now, is that menopause and conversation about perimenopause and menopause are now front and center. When we went through it, no one talked about it. It was just one of those things. Way
never
more
had a
attention.
conversation with my mom about that.
No, nothing. And mum passed when she was 57, and so she was probably in the throes of menopause when she died. She died of breast cancer. Never in my wildest dreams crossed my mind to ask my mother. I was pregnant with my second child. It was the last thing I was thinking about. But now I look back and go, oh, I remember mum sitting on the back deck crying for no real reason. I never even thought that's what she was going through.
Mhm.
And looking back, she probably entered it early. Frederique, this has been a fantastic conversation. I have loved this. And as I said, I'm putting all the details below, how you can contact Fred and get, find out more about what she does. And in particular, if you're in Vancouver, reach out and we'd love to see you at one of Frederique's events, and you can experience the game that she plays. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Sally. That was a lot of fun too. Yes.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that really interesting podcast. Isn't it amazing what people can actually come up with, thinking outside of the square? I love that about women, especially in their midlife and beyond, that clarity of thought that we get. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss another episode, and I look forward to bringing you a new episode of the Midlife Reimagined Life Beyond Menopause podcast next week. I'll see you then.